All right, this is Module 10, Lesson 2, which is severe weather. So the focus question today is, how does heat make storms more powerful? So we have to think back on latent heat and adiabatic cooling and what that does for the growth of a thunderstorm. So air mass, as a review, and so air mass is basically like a cold air mass or a warm air mass. And when those two air masses collide, they form violent weather. And so often we get that in the Midwest because that's where we have polar air coming down from the north, and we've got warm maritime tropical air coming in from the south. All right, so if they form, if we've got a really cold air mass and really warm air mass, then what that ends up forming is something called a supercell, and that's just basically a very powerful storm. So this could produce something along the lines of a tornado. So they can go, the wind speeds can be up to 240 kilometers per hour, which is somewhere in the range of about 150 miles per hour or so. So pretty intense. And they form those anvil-shaped cumulonimbus clouds. And so that would be an extremely powerful storm capable of tornadoes. All right. So basically, in this, we talked about before how cumulonimbus clouds form and how we've got the thunderstorm. So we've got the updraft occurring because of the warm air mass rising, and then we've got the downdraft because of the cold air sinking. And so that's what creates that violent storm. Well, this is a even more violent downburst. So the downdraft is called a downburst when it's very violent. This can knock airplanes out of the sky. So it's really extremely important to, especially in a small airplane, even a large airplane, to stay away and avoid such violent storms because they can be taken out and pushed down onto the ground because of those downbursts. All right, so downbursts can create really powerful um, weather along with it. So not only is it a downburst of air, but everything with it goes along there too. So it could be hail, it could be rain. So we could get really large hail. We could get really intense rainfall at the same time. So there's two characteristics that are common in those thunderstorms. So if we get hail forming, it's really common for there to be a lot of updraft, and the hail kind of just accumulates in the cloud. So it kind of just rolls around. Think of it kind of bouncing around, bouncing on other hail stones, and they get larger and larger the farther and longer they stay up in the cloud. And then eventually they get so heavy, or the downburst, the updraft stops, and so that falls down as hail. And so that's kind of how hail forms. So the more updraft we have, the longer the ice crystals stay in the cloud, the bigger the hail gets. And you saw in that last picture that the hail is pretty large. So that's a pretty large piece of hail, and can cause some serious damage, like on these cars. All right, so a supercell can form what's called a tornado, and so a tornado is just a violent whirling column of air. And so I'll talk a little bit about how they form. They don't last very long, and they aren't very wide, but they are the strongest storms. So they're much stronger in wind speed than hurricanes. The difference is that they're very small. So a hurricane is very large, encompasses hundreds of miles or tens of miles. But a tornado is very small. So a tornado might be a mile wide at the most. So not very wide. So here's kind of what happens. So we've got wind coming across here, and then we've got warm air rising. And so this wind coming across this flat plain. So remember, we have to have kind of a flat area. That's why we don't see a lot of tornadoes out here, is because we really don't have flat plains. We have lots of mountains and things kind of in between. So basically, this wind is coming along, it's rolling this column of air, and the updraft starts to push it up. So the wind is called wind shear coming across the land, and that goes kind of quickly across the land because it's flat. So the warm air is pushing that column, that rotating column of air up. And then eventually what happens is this column of air reaches all the way up. So it basically tipped on its side. And then the wind shear is occurring. So it's pushing the tornado around as the warm air is rising. So you get this column of um, rotating air. And so that's basically a tornado. All right, so we measure tornadoes on something called a Fujita scale, and so that's the F scale. So you've probably heard of hurricane tornadoes, and they talk about an EF5 or an EF2. So that's basically this enhanced Fujita tornado scale. So they can go up to a F5. So an EF5 is the largest, strongest tornado, and that's wind speeds of more than 322 kilometers per hour. So that is roughly about 200 miles per hour. So extremely fast wind in a tornado.
Tornadoes manifest themselves in all sorts of shapes and sizes. Some are a wondrous bright light, others dark, horrific monsters. Most are harmless, grazing over rural farmland. Others are worst-case scenarios. I've been chasing tornadoes since 1999, and these are my top 10 best tornadoes. For storm chasers, up-close tornadoes are often experienced through shaky viewfinders while navigating through chaos and adrenaline. And every now and then you find yourself in just the right spot to just marvel at Mother Nature's magnificence. Right there. Look at that. Number 10 on this countdown was an extremely close, freakish, stationary tornado. A beautiful angel of death, twirling with all the mystery of a ballerina's ghost. For an eternal minute, this tornado pirouetted right in front of my vehicle, causing no destruction, injuries, or fatalities. All right, I gotta go. It's coming. Destruction and death tolls are not considered in this countdown. Rather, tornado structure, beauty, or overall incredibleness. And this next monster is by far the least beautiful tornado in this video. All right, this is going to get really ugly really fast here. This tornado claimed 8 people's lives, including 4 storm chasers. 151 others were injured. Mobile Doppler recorded 295-mile-per-hour winds just above the surface as this tornado grew to a record-breaking 2.6 miles wide, the widest ever recorded. Over most of this mega twister's 40-minute lifespan, it was a non-photogenic blob. Look at the size of that monster. It's the mind-blowing stats that landed the famous El Reno 2013 tornado number 9 on this list. Majority of tornadoes I witness are dark, ugly, chaotic vortices, nebulous in form. Is that a photograph in there? No, it's just black craziness. And number 8 on this list was a beautiful, white, shape-shifting tornado. Over its 30-minute plus lifetime, the tall Alpena, South Dakota tornado manifests itself as a powerful cylinder, a swirling cone, a skinny, writhing snake, and a long, gorgeous, arcing tube. No fatalities or serious injuries occurred with this dreamy EF4. 2 tornadoes on the ground at the same time isn't common. However, 2 almost identical, powerful EF4s in close proximity is extremely rare and a sight to behold. Number 7 and number 6 on this list belong to the Pilger, Nebraska twins. Still on the ground, very large tornadoes. This could go on for a while. And this one of them is getting giant. And next to it, it's almost like they're about to merge. This is unreal. Each one of these tornadoes would claim a life before vanishing into the rain. Eventually emerging was a snaky reincarnation of the Western twin. Unbelievable. This better not be just another dream. Awesome. Oh! Did I just see that? This family of tornadoes occurred on June 16, 2014. The very next day would also produce incredible tornadoes. Cedar County, Nebraska, less than 50 miles from where the twins touched down the day before, and another beast is brewing. Oh, man. This one is violent. It's one thing to be close to a tornado, and it's a whole other craziness to be close and direct directly in the path of a large, violent tornado.
All right, this is my wide angle lens. You're super tight on this sucker. Gotta get my one shot. Okay, time to go. Shut up. Just sitting there. Skate mover. All right, let's get out of here. Let's have a look at this sucker again. Hang on. There it is. On my ass.
No injuries or fatalities occurred with this underrated EF3. Number 4, touchdown just south of Dodge City, Kansas, as two mesocyclones buckled into each other like gears.
Two tornadoes on the ground. Two beautiful landscapes.
For most of this tornado's life, it shared the stage with another nearby tornado, and at one point, 3 were on the ground at the same time. That was awesome. Tornadoes become white or bright gray when they are well lit by sunlight from the front relative to a viewer. The same tornado could be dark if it is backlit or silhouetted relative to another viewer.
Another two tornadoes on the ground. Okay, tornado on the right is a new tornado, and this is the second giant tornado. All right, let's see if we can get around this mess of people. And there she goes.
No fatalities were reported, and again the very next day would produce an even more incredible backlit tornado 160 miles to the northeast.
Oh, here we go. As I drive into the shadow of death, I will try not to fear no evil.
The atmosphere within powerful tornadoes are often described as chaotic, raging disorder, and unleashed pandemonium. After spending nearly an hour up close with this extremely violent tornado, the first word that comes to my mind is harmony. For 90 minutes, this finely tuned destructive machine was on the ground. A rare, perfectly calibrated alignment of wind directions, shear, and speeds, fueled with the precise chemistry of moisture, temperature, and pressure, all brought together with exact, deadly precision.
I got too close. There could be a satellite in all this inflow. Yeah, way too close. That's suckers. Just getting warmed up. I should have known better than this.
Unbelievably, no fatalities occurred with this breathtaking EF4. If ever a thing haunts your dreams, it might resemble number 2 on this countdown, the remorseless Katy Winwood, Oklahoma tornado. In seconds, an entire roof was sucked off its walls and tossed 100 meters into the air. The rest of the house demolished. Trees hover above the ground while roof trusses and 2x4s whirl around the tornado like feathers, and a man loses his life. Listen to it. The roar of the tornado sounds different depending on its size, how close you are, and what the tornado is striking. Ones I've heard over open fields often sound like powerful waterfalls. The bigger the tornado, the louder and deeper the rumble. Ones moving through trees, like this one here, get louder and can sound more like a jet engine.
Listen to that sucker. Listen.
In town, where there are lots of homes and buildings, an approaching tornado might sound like a freight train, with the clickety-clack noises of airborne missiles and heavy debris slamming into your neighbors' homes. All right, number one takes us back south of Dodge City to that unprecedented day, May 24th, 2016. At least a dozen tornadoes touched down, but the first one was the ultimate beautiful tornado.
That's what we came to see. It's conception of the gods.
For approximately 30 minutes, this slow-moving, perfect beauty presented the tornado of a lifetime.
It's about as epic as a tornado can get right there. Wow.
Well-lit, excellent conditions with good roads provided a dream-come-true scenario for even the most dedicated veteran chasers.
How big is this hail? How big is this hail? So sick. Ah. Just slide. Is the rope out? Might as well pull up for this. And there you go. How was that for a show? Wow.
So pretty amazing what the tornadoes look like. I grew up in the Midwest, and so I didn't really see tornadoes, but I had a tornado go through my town, and I was 5, and it wrecked my swing set. So that was pretty sad. But I heard it. I just didn't get to see it. But pretty amazing. I think they're kind of mesmerizing. All right, so most tornadoes occur in the what we call the tornado alley. So that's the middle part of the U.S. That I pointed out the other day, which is extends from Oklahoma, Texas, Missouri, Kansas, in that area. And that's just because that's where we have intense mixing of warm air and cold air. The warm, moist air coming from the Caribbean, from the Gulf of Mexico, and the polar air coming from the middle of Canada, and they mix right there in the middle. And that is it. Oh, no, never mind. Just kidding. So tornado safety. So just the last little tidbit. If you're ever caught in a tornado, so the best thing to do is to get somewhere safe, obviously. But if you have a basement, that's the best place because tornadoes don't go underground. So you're safer underground than you are above ground. So that's the best case scenario is to get into a storm shelter or underground. The next best thing, let's say you don't have that option. The next best thing is to get into kind of the middle of the middle of your house. So like a bathroom, for example, something that has no windows. So you don't want to be anywhere near windows. Somewhere towards the center, somewhere that has a lot of walls and it's a small space. So a closet, a bathroom, things like that. So, and obviously downstairs. So that's kind of the safest place. If you're ever caught in a tornado, take shelter. And that's it. So hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you next time.